Good morning, Nation. John here. Thank you very much, as always, for being here, especially after the video that dropped yesterday. It is truly appreciated. I should be in chat with you this morning. I had somewhere to be yesterday morning, guys and gals. Could not be here. So, lost a few subscribers yesterday. I kind of figured that was coming, though. And it's one of those deals. Look, you've got a small percentage of people. I'm shooting straight with y'all that they just want to be told everything is going to be okay all the time. They're in the prepping community, so inherently they know something's up. They know something's wrong with the world that we live in. But when you start kind of pulling the sheets down and showing them the truth, son, they don't want to hear it. They would rather go to a happy-go-lucky, feelsy type of channel, and that's not the place here at Prepper Nation. I try and keep it as little fear-mongerish as humanly possible, but sometimes you just got to call a spade, as we like to say here. So thank y'all for coming back is what I'm getting down to. If you missed yesterday's video, you might want to go back and watch it first. I'm actually link it in the video description below. We're talking about yesterday, how long before the collapse of the United States of America and how it's a foregone conclusion. Today, we're going to be talking about how do you survive a collapse of any country, including the United States. And again, some of you did disagree, and that's okay yesterday. But at least you hung around and you stated your case, and I can respect that. So when you get into the collapse of a society, whether it's, and there's many recent examples, but looking back to the Soviet Union, because they were very much like the United States, their economy was in ruins or headed into that direction. They disbanded. You can look at Venezuela. A lot of people go there when they're trying to talk about this topic. You can go most recently to Sri Lanka. They're still dealing with this right now. They're a country, but their economy is toast. And it's just not a good situation. So history is a great teacher. It's not like I'm sitting here saying, yeah, I've lived through, the total collapse of the United States a few times before. I know exactly what's going to happen. No, son, that's not what I'm saying. I'm looking at the most recent examples and I'm trying to figure out what these things have in common. And if you go back in the three that I just mentioned, if you study them, you're going to see that there are common themes throughout. All right, one being shortages, but not just shortages. There are four specific things that ran short in each and every economy. The first thing that runs out is water. Clean water, drinking water, water for hygiene. This seems to make sense to me because we talk about zombies not having, more than 3 or 4 days tops worth of food in their home. I promise you, if the taps don't work, they don't have 3 or 4 days worth of water on hand on average. So water, and another example I'll give you is anytime there's a natural disaster, okay? Tornado, hurricane, expected hurricane, blizzard, winter storm, people blitz the bottled and purified water. I mean, they just do, because people immediately start thinking, then the light bulb goes off. It should be going off now with all the chaos in our country, but then the light bulb goes off and they make a run on the water. The second similarity between the most recent examples is food. You guys are growing it. You guys are stacking it. You folks are canning it. You're mylaring it. You're doing what you're supposed to do. Most of you, okay? So food should not be an issue, but it's still something that you want to keep in mind, okay? Because the thing with the collapse of a nation, or even if we just see an economic collapse, there's no way to tell how long that's going to last. We don't know if it's going to be a year long. We don't know if it's going to be the length of the pandemic. We don't know if it's going to be a decade. So you need to figure out how much food you want to and are willing to prep. And then you need to shift over to being a producer and not depending on the grocery store at some point. Number 3 is gasoline, petrol. All three nations, the most recent examples, immediately they saw a shortage on gasoline. And people just did not know what to do. They went from everything is normal to bam, I can't move my car out of the driveway. I don't know how I'm going to heat my home, this sort of thing. And number 4, and this one is very important, medication and medical access. This almost immediately during a collapse situation, economic or otherwise, immediately ceases to exist. There's no more calling in to the doctor, getting a prescription, going to your local pharmacy to pick it up because the pharmacy's not open anymore. They don't have anything to give you. You're lucky if you're able at that point to make a phone call or call a doctor. Uh, a lot of cases, especially with Venezuela, they were having trouble with hospitals even being open. Because when people start to panic, reality sets in, and this idea that we live in this normal world goes out of the window. Okay, so this applies for doctors and nurses too. Some of them may stick around and decide they're going to work during all of the chaos. Most of them, if they have a family, they're going to start thinking about their family, or I think they would anyway. We were talking about the Titanic yesterday. I'd made this analogy. I said, if you're one of these people, you still have ultimate faith. No, the country's absolutely coming back 100%. I said, you're the violin player at this point, and you're just playing the violin, and you're trying to keep people comfortable until it goes underwater, okay? A few people said, you have to stand up, don't have a defeatist attitude, and I respect that. I do, but I just don't see enough Americans having that pro-America attitude anymore. Maybe I'm totally wrong on that, but getting back to the Titanic analogy for a second, it's not all gloom and doom because certain people made it off of the Titanic. Certain people had secured spots on life rafts. There weren't enough life rafts. There's not going to be during a societal collapse, okay? But you're rich first and foremost. Your CEOs, your congressmen and women, your very important, highfalutin people, they're already expecting a collapse. They're already working on their plan, their lifeboat, or their seat on a lifeboat when this happens. But it's not just the elites that can do this. This is why I'm bringing up this topic yesterday and today. If you know it's coming and you prep accordingly, you can secure your seat and your family seat on these lifeboats. And you can just kind of make it through after the Titanic goes down until something else comes along. Something will become of the United States of America. Maybe the name of it will not switch, but I promise you the idea of the constitutional republic is already on its way out. It's already under attack, okay? They're relentless. They're not going to stop. Our economy is not going to kickstart all of the sudden. We can't keep borrowing money from other countries to pay for people that are unwilling to work because we've gotten too far into socialism now. Again, this is my opinion, okay? Almost immediately during a collapse, you're going to see black markets established. These are going to vary depending on what they look like. Some are going to look like swap meets and flea markets, but everybody's going to be armed, or at least everybody should be armed at this point. We saw this again in the Soviet Union when it went under. We've seen this now in Sri Lanka. We've seen this in Venezuela. This is why some people push gold and silver, because it's valuable in that situation. Other things have value too, though. It's not just precious metals, okay? They're going to be looking for the 4 things I just mentioned, all right? Drinking water and ways to purify water quickly, food on down the line, gasoline. Other times you're going to have, I don't want to say mob bosses, maybe warlords or, block leaders or something. There's going to be somebody in charge, and they're going to lay down ground rules. And as long as you're willing to follow these ground rules, you can play the game, so to speak. So you're going to see that almost immediately, along with rolling blackouts. Another common theme that happened right out of the gates. Sri Lanka's crashing, boom, rolling blackouts. Because they couldn't keep everything online. The power had to be diverted. The government is trying to salvage what's left. So they're diverting power to that, all right? The same with the Soviet Union as they were making that transition over to Russia. The same with Venezuela, rolling blackouts. Um, Curfews, I think, will be put into place. It may not be called martial law, but it'll look a whole lot like martial law. You know, if you have a curfew of dark or 7 p.m., and someone puts a rifle in your face, an authoritative figure, and says you need to be off the streets at 7 p.m., that sure sounds like martial law to me. You know, we could at that point run into situations where the authoritative figures, what's left of our government, what's left of our police force, National Guard, could start to at that point go door to door and seize what they can see openly, ask questions, take what they deem necessary. So please understand that. You're also going to see a lot of rioting almost immediately. As soon as the food and water begins to run out and people comprehend what's going on, you know, a lot of times they'll sit around and just wait on the power company or they'll call. As soon as they realize it's gone, they're going to be out in the streets. Desperate people do desperate things. Our government, they know this. They have contingency plans in place. So you have large numbers of dangerous people that don't know what else to do but wreak havoc, and you have the government trying to preserve itself by force. All right, you're going to see that. Stuff that we normally take for granted. Coffee, for example, tea maybe. For you sickos. I'm just picking. Cooking oils was a common shortage during all three. Venezuela and Sri Lanka still struggling with cooking oils. They're very hard to find, and when you can, they're extremely costly. Your vices, you know, again, coffee, you can get into whiskey, you can get into moonshine. Being a moonshiner would be a great trade during a collapse. I'm just saying. Tobacco, stuff of this nature. Everybody has something, you know, and even if you're into the Bible, all right, maybe that's your vice. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I encourage that, but there's going to be a black market for stuff like that. Places where you can go to find that sort of literature. A lot of people are going to be turning to God at that point, and we see it every single time, right? And they're not going to know where to get a Bible. So you will see some of that, and you'll have a lot of people, I think, street preaching, to be quite frank. No emergency numbers to call. Let that sink in for a second. Just marinate it for a second here. There's no 911. And if you call 911, guess what? They're not coming. And if they do come, it's going to be several hours or several days. So what's the emergency that you're calling for? Hey, when's the power going to be back on? I can't get a hold of the power company. Let me call 911. That's not really an emergency. They don't care about that during a collapse. If something major is going on, somebody's trying to kick your front door in, son, a couple of days is a very long time before help arrives again, if it arrives at all. You need to be prepared for that. A lot of people aren't prepared for that. They're going to run into medical emergencies, and they're going to be like, calling 911, either nobody's answering or nobody's coming. What do you do at that point? So one question that you have to ask yourself, I think, is your plan as a prepper to bunker in or to bug out? And I think in this situation, you should have a backup to the backup. So what I mean by this is if your plan is to bunker in, that's awesome. Work on home security, work on stacking everything you need. But don't be one of these people, I'm just going to die here at the castle. You don't want to do that. As a prepper, you need a backup plan to your backup plan. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what kind of threat is going to present itself. You may have to leave very quickly. All right, do you want to hop into a vehicle that has an eighth of a tank of gas and do so with no bug out bag, you know, just whatever you can throw together in 30 seconds? You don't even know where you're going at that point. Or do you want to have a designated spot already there waiting for you, keeping gas in the vehicle, already have a bug out bag just in case? I would encourage you to. Think about this. During a collapse, whether it's the entire country is collapsing or the economy is just totally crashing, whatever. What happens if you lose your job, your primary source of income? What happens if you're married and you and your spouse both lose your income? What if you're dependent on retirement, SSI, maybe your 401k? What if that's completely wiped out like this, right? What if you're somebody that depends on maybe, just social programs like food stamps and stuff? What are you going to do at that point? Because they're not coming. The mailman's not running anymore. The mailman's not bringing it. Your card's not going to be refilled magically once a month. You're literally on your own at that point. Or you and your family. What do you do? I mean, this is going to be a huge issue for a lot of people, because at that point, the reality is going to begin to set in. At that point, if you have a family member with a medical emergency, you have no way to get to the ER, the hospital, or they're not open. You have no income. You have nothing prepped. That's a bad situation. And a lot of people are going to find themselves there, okay? You're going to have huge numbers of homeless and drifters because of this reason. I'm not dehumanizing anybody, all right? There are plenty of homeless people that truly cannot help it, and they're just down on their luck, and they don't know how to improve their situation, all right? But what's going to happen is you're going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, instantly become homeless, instantly drifting from town to town or city to city because they have nothing to eat. They have no fuel. They have no way to keep warm. They have no drinking water. This is a huge deal. Because of this, crime is going to be totally out of control. This is why we're always pushing the weapons of peace here in the prepping community. Now, some of you are fond of like the 12 gauges. Some of you are fond of the really nice scoped variety. Everybody has a favorite here. Have something. All right. Understand that may save your life when it comes right down to it, no matter how good your plan is. Understand that banks will either close completely and just hang up a sign that says "sucks to be you," something like that, or they're going to limit what you're able to move around. I'm not talking about, you can only withdraw $800 a day from this ATM. No, I'm talking severely limit. Moving around $50 a day, answering 500,000 questions on where you're spending this $50, that sort of thing. Okay, it matters. Somebody was asking, they left a comment yesterday, they don't like the slow fall. They're tired of it. They're, just you get burnt out on watching it fall in slow motion. And someone else replied, and it was an excellent reply. They said, the longer it takes the United States of America to fall, the more time they have to prepare for it. Use that time accordingly. I'll close with this, okay? Here in America, I can't speak for other countries, son. I'm not all over the place. I ain't got visas and all that. But our standard of living is way up here, and it has been for a very long time, decades, folks. What you need to understand is our standard of living is slowly dropping, and eventually it's going to be down here beneath my shoe. It's going to look like a third world country during a collapse. The best way that I know how to explain the collapse of the United States, in my opinion, okay, this is just my opinion, a very prolonged and violent Great Depression. Prolonged because I think it's going to last more than 3 or 4 years, but I also don't know exactly how long this is going to take. Violent because, again, desperate people do crazy things. And Great Depression because I think it's going to come on the back of our financial institution. I mean, the moment we go off of reserve currency, and we're quickly headed in that direction, once the U.S. dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency, countries are not going to lend us money anymore. And not only are we going to have to, at that point, take the tax money that we have coming in and try and figure out how we're going to pay for all the social programs and all of the, whether it's food stamps, whether it's police force, whether it's roads and highways, schools. How are we going to pay for all of that with the tax revenue we have coming in while we owe $32 trillion back out? You know what I'm saying? We're going to have to start paying that back. And there's just no way around it. Financial collapse is a done deal. That's not even open for discussion. But I think on the back of that, you're going to have war, and you're just going to have, the wheels are going to fall off at some point. So anyway, that's my opinion on it. I would love to hear your opinions on it if you made it all the way through this video. It's rather long this morning, so I do apologize for that. For the folks that have been asking about the live streams, yes, we're going to be having some more live streams. They're going to look a little different. They're coming later this week. It's something that I'm having fun with. So hopefully you guys enjoy it when it gets here, and gals. Until next time, y'all take care, and God bless.